Good morning, everyone, and thank you for this great opportunity to present to you all today. A special thanks needs to go out to Esri Australia for putting on this event. It's actually really exciting to be able to come together like this, the Esri community, and be able to talk about the work that we're doing, and ultimately just network and share our thoughts. So really grateful for that opportunity today. So today, the presentation, I basically want to just share with you on the work that we're doing within the planning department and ultimately how we're enabling informed planning through the power of spatial. As mentioned, I manage the spatial services team in the Department of Transport and Planning, and we've got a team of 17 people. We come from a really diverse range of backgrounds, but one thing we have in common is a shared passion to do exciting work with spatial technologies like the Esri stack. In terms of our responsibilities, primarily it's deliver spatial services and support to the planning department. But to dig into it in a bit of detail, we manage the department's spatial data sets, for instance, the planning scheme zones and overlays. We produce high-quality cartographic products, which are really powerful and used extensively across the department. We deliver spatial analysis, which is really empowering for planning projects. We develop web mapping applications and manage the underlying architecture. We provide the Minister for Planning with the ability to visualize planning permit applications in 3D. And we also give our planners the ability to understand how those proposed developments might impact on the surrounding built form. And we're leveraging gaming engine technology, which enables us to create some really immersive fly-through visualizations in images, which are extremely powerful when it comes to presentations. So today, I just want to walk you through some of the key areas of the work that we're doing, the projects that we're involved in, and ultimately how spatial technologies like the ArcGIS stack are empowering planning for Victoria's future. First up, the management of our planning data sets. The planning scheme is a complex model. For those that are unaware, planning schemes, they basically dictate or contain the policies and provisions that outline land use and development across the state. For us in Victoria, we manage the planning scheme on behalf of the 79 municipalities who submit their updates to the planning scheme in the form of planning scheme amendments. Now, it was up to about 10 years ago, this process was being done in a really manual fashion. It was labor intensive, we were using an outdated technology stack, and of course that was prone to error. It was around that time that we started our transition to Esri, and with it came the opportunity to really improve the way that we managed the planning scheme. We were able to leverage the desktop tools. We introduced automation and scripting. We applied a topology across our data set. All of this allowed us to drive down the amount of manual effort that went in, and subsequently, it reduced the level of error. Today, the process is largely automated, and it allows us as a team to turn our attention to more high-value work. And one of those areas that have benefited is the ability to deliver spatial analysis within planning projects. Spatial analysis within the department plays a significant role when telling a story. Some of the recent work that we've been involved in within the department includes undertaking shadow studies, looking at how new developments might introduce overshadowing on the existing area. There's a big focus on the housing crisis across the country, and in Victoria we're undertaking lot eligibility assessments for programs like Future Homes, which is tackling housing affordability. We work with our planners to understand walkable catchment areas around key activity centres that are being developed and access to key infrastructure, and looking at the levels of public transport accessibility across the state. And we're also leveraging machine learning, using it to understand how rezoned land is being developed and if it's being developed appropriately. But some of the key things that we've come to learn when it comes to spatial analysis within the department is, firstly, when our stakeholders come to us with a request, it's not actually always going to be what they need. They may not know fully what's possible with the spatial technologies we all have at our fingertips. So it's really important as a group that we spend time with our stakeholders to fully understand what what are our stakeholders? In my instance, what are the planners trying to achieve? Because what they ask for isn't always what they're after. And secondly, and even more importantly, you can generate the most powerful spatial data sets, but if it's not presented in a fashion that's digestible to our users, it's not going to have the desired result. And that's where, for us, our cartography team play a really significant role. Cartography in planning plays a part in almost everything we do in spatial. The most powerful spatial analysis, the most amazing spatial data, won't have the desired impact without appropriate presentation. Now, for those that know my background, I'm not a cartographer. I don't have a single design bone in my body, to be honest, but I do appreciate and understand the significant value that cartographers provide in the department. They understand the significance of design principles, cartographic principles, and they're able to bring that to the table, and we're able to deliver some really amazing results. In terms of the technologies we use within the department, it's really simply a mix of ArcGIS Pro, and then it's those integrations into the design software, for instance, Adobe Creative Cloud, using Maps for Creative Cloud and Map Publisher. While our ability to produce and deliver really impressive cartographic products like this is great, another area within the team that's also benefited heavily and significantly from our cartographic team is our web map developers. Now, I think, Simon mentioned it, but when it comes to delivering web mapping applications, it's arguably the most engaging and accessible delivery mechanism we have available. Being able to provide spatial tools, spatial data into the hands of our users in an intuitive and easy-to-use fashion is incredibly powerful. Within the department, we've got a growing footprint of web mapping applications. At last count, it was over 40. But that said, we only have a small number of developers that are undertaking the work. So it's really important for us that we have strong processes and practices in place to both implement and maintain our web mapping footprint. We put a lot of emphasis on prototyping and proof of concepts because it allows us to bring our stakeholders along on the development journey when it comes to web mapping. In terms of the technologies that we're using for our web mapping within the department, it's a mix of configuration-based solutions like Experience Builder. We're using story maps, GeoCortex and Vertigo Studio, but we're also using custom solutions as well, leaning heavily on the Maps SDK for JavaScript, which is allowing us to produce some really targeted fit-for-purpose solutions. But it's really important to remember when it comes to web mapping, the most amazing set of tools won't have that desired impact if they're not intuitive and easy to use for our stakeholders. And that, again, has been where I've seen the cartographic team, the designers, being able to really add significant value. As the use and demand for web mapping has grown within the department, so too has the demand for 3D on the web. 3D is playing a really critical role in planning today. And over the last 5 or so years, we've spent a lot of time building up a platform to support our planners when it comes to working in 3D. Creatively called Planning in 3D, it's made up of 3 key components. Firstly, an Esri-based planning-centric 3D web application, which we call Vic3D. Basically, it's giving our users the ability to review planning permit applications in 3D. Secondly, a parametric modeling service. Using the likes of Grasshopper and Rhino, this allows us to create complex built form scenarios using planning controls as inputs and make them available to our users through the web interface. And thirdly, and arguably the most glamorous part, is that gaming engine-based visualization capability. Being able to take all of our amazing spatial data, bring it into gaming engines like Unreal Engine, allows us to create these really impressive visuals, which are so impactful when it comes to community outreach, consultations, media releases, or even ministerial briefings. Planning a 3D platform didn't spring up overnight. If I take you back to the start of our journey 5 years ago, we started with a market assessment. At the time, we were working with a 3D platform that didn't have any spatial integration capabilities. It was quite limited. So we took the time to do a bit of a market assessment to look at what technologies were available and what would potentially meet our needs. We settled on what we thought would be a good candidate, and we embarked on the development of a proof of concept, which you can see the results of on the screen. This was built using the Maps SDK for JavaScript, and it allowed us to validate that the API would give us a lot of functionality out of the box, but it was also easily extended to meet our stakeholders' requirements. It was largely successful, which was exciting, but that's not to say that we didn't hit some early road bumps along the way. A couple of those road bumps that we hit were firstly stakeholder buy-in. While there was a lot of stakeholders that were excited by the prospect of a new 3D solution for planning, there were those that were resistant to change. They were comfortable with the existing approach, so it was really important for us to bring them along on the journey. We needed to understand their concerns, understand their challenges, but also demonstrate to them why this was going to be a better outcome. The other road bump we hit was the debate between custom and configuration-based solutions. There was a bit of nervousness around developing a custom solution in this space. So again, it was imperative for us to demonstrate to our executive that going down this path was the right decision. We needed to highlight that the API had a strong legacy, it had solid documentation, and a good user community. And through that process, we were able to get the buy-in, we'll get the confidence, and we're able to move on with the formal implementation. Vic3D, the web application, was built with one key thing in mind: providing our users with the ability to undertake 3D visualization and 3D analysis through the web. As mentioned, it was built using the Maps SDK for JavaScript. But we also leaned heavily on ArcGIS solutions. And for those that are unfamiliar with ArcGIS solutions, they're basically a collection of industry-specific configurations which enable us to get more value out of our spatial data and the Esri stack. For us, it benefited this project because it allowed us to streamline the implementation of our 3D base map, and it also helped with a lot of our 3D analysis. The Vic3D application brings together a range of different spatial data sets. That includes the existing built form in the form of textured and untextured building models. There's realistic photo mesh data sets. There's BIM models. And there's also those key 2D spatial data sets as well. The core requirement for the system was being able to assess how planning permit applications would look amongst the existing built form. And we represent planning permit applications with those 3D pins, which when clicked upon, bring up the associated building model. It's from there, planners can undertake their assessment of how that would impact on the surroundings. A big way they do that is overshadowing, looking at the shadow impact from a new development. And the tools in the Maps SDK for JavaScript made that really easy, for instance, the shadow accumulation function here. They also undertake visibility assessments, and that's where tools like a view shed can be really powerful because they can look at the view shed both pre and post a new building being introduced. But there are situations where our planners will receive a building directly, and they need to import and position it accurately, and that's where the import tool that is available through the API is really powerful. They can load that model in and specify the position accurately. But when they don't receive a building model, or they need to model something up based on a specification, that's where they can use the sketch function. Our planners will basically define a building footprint, number of floors, any required setbacks, and then they can undertake their assessments from there. Now, as the usage of Vic3D grew within the department, so too did the demand from other areas of the business to be able to leverage the functionality. And some of the other ways that the Esri 3D functionality is being used within the department include visualizing planning rules in 3D, for instance, building height controls. Planners are using the platform to visualize and assess different precinct planning scenarios really quickly through the web. Planners are using it to understand how proposed developments would impact on planning constraints, for instance, the Shrine of Remembrance Vista. Heritage Victoria are part of the department, and they were big adopters of the platform, and they use it to visualize their large catalogue of historic 3D models. We've also got planners using it to undertake viewshed analysis along key landscape areas. And we've even got planners using it to visualize flight path data, understanding how flight paths like the helicopter one from our police headquarters in the Melbourne CBD, how that potentially would be impacted by surrounding developments. Over the last 10 years, working with the Esri technology stack has empowered us to deliver some really amazing results to the department. And we're continually looking at new and exciting ways to innovate. Some of our focus areas right now include procuring and getting access to highly detailed street-level photo mesh datasets like the one you see on the screen. For those that have worked with photo meshes, they can look quite good from above, but when you get down to the street level, they can be a little rough at times. But datasets like this provide a really immersive experience for our planners, and it provides them with a great mechanism to understand how proposed developments would look amongst the existing built form. For instance, that building you can see in the distance. It's leveraging these data sets and the integrations that the ArcGIS technology stack provide us, for instance, Maps SDK for Unreal, that provide our users with some really great functionality. We're also looking at AR and how we can further equip our planners when they're assessing planning permit applications. So, before I leave you, just some reflections on our journey and a couple of key lessons that we've learned along the way. Firstly, that debate between a custom solution and a configuration-based solution. It's something that we talk a lot about in the department. There's going to be situations where a configuration-based approach using Experience Builder or story maps is going to be the best fit. And there's going to be other scenarios where a custom solution might be the better approach. Ultimately, in the department, we try to hold true to the point, it's got to be the right tool for the job. But when it does come to going down that custom solution path, you can't shy away from the maintenance aspect. There is a level of maintenance required when you go down that custom solution path. But for us, choosing an API like the Maps SDK for JavaScript, which has a really comprehensive documentation set for anyone who's taken a look. It has a huge amount of sample resources, and the roadmap is really strong as well. That gave us the confidence that even though we're going down that custom path, it's the right decision. And I think the results have been able to validate that. And it's just some key advice that we've picked up or that I'd like to share with you. Firstly, continue to invest in your teams and yourself. We didn't start this journey with a team that had all of the skills we required, but it took an investment in training and development to get us to where we are today. So it's really important that we continue to advocate for training and development, learning opportunities across our teams. And ultimately, it not only boosts team morale, but allows us to deliver really amazing results to our stakeholders. Spend time with your stakeholders. They can be frustrating, they can be demanding, but it's so important that we spend time getting to fully understand and appreciate our stakeholders' needs. And lastly, collaboration and knowledge sharing is vital. The success of the projects that we're working on is heavily dependent on us working together, learning from one another, and driving one another to bigger and better things. So on that note, I thank you for your time, your attention. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day.